Hello, hello, hello. Welcome everyone to our online book club called Reading River. Every week we go live right here on YouTube to chat about a few chapters. No spoilers ahead of schedule and no pressure, just good books and great conversation. And whether you're a long-term reader or just getting started, you're welcome here. Now, this genre for this group is called Noire because we'll be covering books written by Black authors. The current book that we're reading is God is a Black Woman from Dr. Christina Cleveland. We are currently on chapter 4, so if you have not read the first 3 chapters, feel free because the episodes are uploaded. If you're writing with us on chapter 4, feel free to put what you're thinking in the comments and we'll be happy to address it and see if we're all on the same page. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panel. So we're going to start with Sheen. We got Debbie, you got Toya, and me, Nene. And let's go ahead and get started because this was an interesting chapter. This chapter was entitled God of the Gag Reflex, White Male God's Disgust for Human Need. So I'm going to go ahead and say I breezed through this chapter, but I think it was because of unfortunately, because of the content of this chapter. So if you're sensitive, you may want to sit this one out, boo-boo, and then come back to us later. But before I get started, did anybody have anything to say regarding the last chapter before we move into the 4th chapter, or is everybody good?
I'm good off of revisiting the 3rd chapter.
Same here.
This 4th one.
Agree.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Let's see. Right. So let's get started. So I'm on my digital book. It is on page 55, and let's see. So young Christina, right? She took it back for a minute. Now at this part, she is 5 years old, okay? And she starts the book, which is already like, ugh. But she starts the book with the first sentence. She said, "My buttocks began to quiver as soon as I spotted the shame in my dad's eyes. I knew I was in for a colossal beating." We moved down, and as we moved along in the story, it sounds like, she's at a Sunday school with her 2 teachers named Todd and Yvonne. And as she goes into the story, she says, as an adult, I'm befuddled when I try to understand how knowledge of English vowels is relevant to spirituality. But as a 5-year-old, I was simply eager to demonstrate my vast knowledge of the alphabet. Truth is, I was a kindergartner in a desperate need of a win. She goes into saying that, there's a reason I'm reading this word for word because I'm going to come back to it. But she starts off by saying a few months prior, I had transferred to a new class in public school, a kindergarten, 1st grade hybrid class. So technically like kindergarten and 1st grade mixed, right? I had struggled to catch up with my classmates in every subject but music. As the end of the school year approached, I began to feel defeated. Every math calculation presented a conundrum, every phonetic pronunciation a puzzle, and as I wrestled with my homework each night, I began to question whether I was capable of learning at all. So when my Sunday school teachers gave me a chance to show off my knowledge, my heart ballooned with hope. And more than anything, I wanted to feel smart in a classroom setting, any classroom setting. Okay. Before we dive more into it, at first when I read this, I was like, okay, let's see, it's a kid thing, she's going through school. But then I had to go back and reread it because I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. And to go back, first of all, she was 5. Now, I can assume that, for dramatic purposes in the book, we may have, been a little dramatic or whatever, but I do just want to recite what she says, right? She says, as I wrestled with my homework each night, I began to question whether I was capable of learning at all. So now my first thought is, at 5, in this hybrid class, what I didn't hear her say, and she can confirm later or not, I didn't hear her say her and her mom went through, or her and her mom helped her with her homework to help her understand, and she just wasn't able to. What I didn't hear was her and her dad went through her homework because she was struggling, and they, maybe she was still struggling after. But again, what I'm not hearing is anyone helping this baby girl on her homework. And I'm like, how this 5-year-old got this much pressure to the point where she wants to show off her knowledge. Now, I know, like I said, these, people can, and being 5 years old, I'm sure there's a lot that be tied to the story, But that's the first thing that got me. Before I move on, did anyone have anything to add to it before I move through the chapter?
I guess for myself, reading that as well, the thing that came to mind wasn't even that. I was like, just thinking to myself, I was like, she has a great memory because I don't remember much about kindergarten or first grade. Other than what I cried the first day that my parents dropped me off, and one of the best Halloween parties ever happened that year because Thriller, which is playing the entire time in the classroom, and we were just boogieing. And I dressed up. That's about it, ma'am. As far as for real, how much, I don't know, when we was younger, I know in middle school, high school, had a lot of homework. Kindergarten through 5th grade, not that much homework. Was it what I'm saying? Like how much were they really, I feel like this was a bit exaggerated, but it may have very well went down like that. I don't know.
It's possible. It's possible. Like I hear you. I hear you.
Let me ask you guys: how much do you guys remember from your kindergarten and first grade year?
I remember being in
I
school.
remember a lot.
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say I kind of remember a lot.
Yeah, I remember a lot, and I think it depends on the person and how you dealt with it. Like most times, trauma sometimes stands out, and of course, all of the good times always stand out.
Good point.
It literally depends on the person and how they move through life.
That's a good point.
I agree with that.
That's a good point. I did like how you touched on her memory, Sheen, because that plays a big part of some of the other questions that I want to ask. I'm sorry. I think, was you about to say something, Tori? I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying I agree. Debbie nailed it. As far as what I was thinking, it just depends, because when she asked that, I was kind of like, well, actually, I kind of do. But when she, like Deb said, about the good and the bad, but it was I just remember a lot, because I remember a lot of the good moments. And then I also know it was some tough times for my parents in them ages. So I remember them very, very good. So, yeah, that made sense when she said that, as far as the good and definitely trauma things. So,
that was a great point. That was a great point, Debbie. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Of course, and I also agree with Shing. She does have. I feel like, of course, some of it may be dramatized for,
of course,
the sake of the book.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, she moves on to actually says something about this Sunday school session. So as she's talking about her homework and how it's been really difficult for her trying to catch up, it sounds like, she now flashes back into the Sunday school session. And she says something. I was like, let me ask y'all if y'all heard of this, but I'm on page 56, and she says, first she recites the vowels. I'm sorry, let me go backwards. First she recites the vowels, and before they could even ask another kid, she went on and recites them, and they're just enamored. She says, a gleam of affirmation in my teacher Yvonne's eyes was, amazing. She's beaming. She's excited. She's getting all this affirmation. And then she says, now she was hooked. This all felt too good. And as far as I was concerned, Todd might as well been the impossible to please landowner in the famous Bible parable we had recently learned about in Sunday school. Am I missing something? I didn't learn nothing about no landowner in a famous Bible parable. And when I went back to look it up, I didn't get any of that. Do you guys remember any of this? Like a Bible parable about a landowner?
No, that was my first time actually seeing that correlation, or even hearing that.
I was trying to figure out. I was like, okay, who is she talking about?
What story was this?
They had some. I'm like, okay, I know that some people had some land, but like, what story stood out about them having some land and giving? So I was trying to figure out. I can't say if there was or wasn't. I just didn't pinpoint who she was talking about. If that is real,
man.
For that, I read and kept it moving.
Yeah, I maybe should have. I tried to look it up. And anyway, I didn't get the landowner story that I saw in like Matthew, I believe. It was nothing in connection to why it was an example in this context, but whatever. So anyway, as she's describing the Sunday school class, she says, so I told a giant fib. And she yells out or says to these two Sunday school teachers in front of the class or whatever, she says, actually, I'm so smart that I'll be skipping first grade next year and going straight to second grade. Now, I'm going to read all of this from front to the end of this point, because there's a lot of questions that I had before we move. Now, some things that she confirms in, later pages, but I just want to read this so that we can just walk through this moment right here, okay? Again, I'm still on page 56. And so her dad comes up, right? So at first we didn't know anything about the dad. We didn't know if he was in the picture. We didn't hear about this guy. We didn't know. But now we got a nice little sense of this man, okay? Her father. So the Sunday school teacher says, as she says, when my dad came to collect me, Yvonne mentioned to him that he must be so proud that I was skipping first grade. He says, Christina said, what? He stuttered. That's when I saw the shame in his eyes and knew that I was about to get a horrific beating. My fleeting experience of love was immediately replaced with fear and shame, both of which caused me to tremble as we drove the 20 miles home from church. Dad seethed silently in the car, and as soon as we arrived at our home, he said the one string of words that still make me cringe today: get the stick. I obediently lumbered into the house, climbed atop the washing machine in the central hallway, reached toward the shelf above the washer, and felt around for the thick rod that lurked at the poorly lit back of the shelf. My small brown fists clutching in the 36-inch stick, I hopped down from the washer and carried it to my dad, who was waiting for me in the place where we always received our spankings, Mom and Dad's bedroom. The reason I read this part top to bottom is because I kind of wanted us to walk through this ride home, right? And this is where I started. You know what? Let me just get into it. So, first, I'm like, well, reading this, just like what Sheen said in the beginning, she has an amazing memory, okay? Now, this young five-year-old, this is a baby, okay? She's going back telling this story, but she's so detailed to say where this stick was. Let's go back. She says she climbed atop the washing machine in the central hallway. She knew the central hallway. She reached toward the shelf above the washer, felt around for the thick rod that lurked poorly lit in the shelf. She knew how long it was, 36 inches. Okay? She has this kind of memory, or at least able to go back. But when I'm looking at this paragraph or these couple of paragraphs, is it an educated guess to say that the first thing was, I was like, well, did this dad, was this a short ride home or a long ride home? But she says, we drove the 20 miles home from church. Why does that matter? Because I'm like, so I don't recall in this paragraph, and again, she can confirm later because she does confirm some of it, there was no conversation. There was no acts of, baby, why'd you lie? Why'd you tell a story in school? What I got was dad seethed silently in the car. Now, I don't know about how fast you guys drive, but a 20-mile home from church, that's about 15 minutes me driving regular speed, not like a bat out of hell or nothing. So that's at least 15 minutes to ask, baby girl, why'd you lie? Notice it didn't take me 15 minutes to just ask that question. So I guess that's my first thing. So this man is sitting in the car, not saying anything, not having a conversation. This girl is 5. Let me drink some water. Hold on. Because and so at first I said, well, maybe this man is not good at communicating, which I learned that was different later in the story.
Right.
Maybe, maybe she may not have said that he talked to her, which I don't get this from this paragraph and the description that she gives. This girl is able to describe how long the whooping stick is. I think she would have mentioned that they would have had a conversation. And then, well, before I move on, because now we're going to get into what actually happened, and I'm not going to read too much because, to be honest, it's a little graphic for me. Y'all can let me know if you want me to read it, but we can kind of imagine what happened next, but we'll walk through it. Do you have anything to add to this part before I move on?
No, just the part I think I agree with. Just before it got to the part that we get to, just the whole, I guess, how extreme and how she felt that it was kind of like, okay, we all done probably lied or told a fib, and the parents found out whether it's teacher, Sunday school, this person, parent. But I guess what I thought or considered of like, okay, dog, she really scared. Like, how bad is this whooping finna be for you just saying this lie? Like, a lot of he could have been like, oh, she just wants the fabric. That could have been played off and wouldn't have been such a big deal that she lied. Like, she didn't shame the family or just something make. I was like, okay. So, yeah, I definitely, the preface before it get into where it got, it was like, okay, wow, okay, so he must really be, I don't know, like that type of stern parent. Like, wow. So, yeah.
I guess it didn't surprise me because, hearing about, or if you've met kids, that grew up in religious households.
True.
Sometimes they grow up in a stricter household than everybody else, or more than, other families. So, but then also, I think I thought of it in the sense of this was like a typical, since we're dealing with the 80s, this was kind of like your, I don't want to say typical, but a no nonsense black 80s father.
Really?
Like I was raised, the way that I was raised was brought up tough in the sense of, how the dad, how they were brought up. And then they raised us the exact same way. Now, as adults today who are we're all, the ages that we are now as adults, we look at what she read, that's normal for kids to do. Kids lie, whatever. It's not, you know what I'm saying? Like, kids lie. They'll lie about anything. It's you know what I'm saying? It's not a big deal. But taking it back to the 80s, like, shoot, if you breathe wrong, you were in danger of getting your behind whooped. You know what I'm saying? Like there were no slippery slopes. There were no, giving your opinion or tell me how you felt about no. There was
true. Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you knew what I say. This is, I mean, they were stricter than the military. You know what I'm saying? Like Like, so to me, reading that and kind of, uh, kind of, like, cause I can actually, like my father, he had a real short temper. So, like, you couldn't even joke. Like, he could be the only one to crack a joke. And you better laugh.
And you better
You know what I'm
laugh. Oh
saying?
no.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, on some, like, what's so damn funny? No, I don't know why the chicken crossed the road. Why is that funny?
Sorry.
Hey, crack
Sorry.
my belt. You know what I'm saying? Like, let me, like on the real. So I get where, like, some of these, you know what I'm saying? Kind of like maybe how there was just like, as we read on, how she's saying, with her education, there was no room for error, no room for that. That's how some of was raised back, you know, even during our time.
Yeah. And I think we need to focus. Like, what stands out is the fact that she was brought up in a Pentecostal household.
True.
So, from what I know of children who have grown up in that environment, it's a strict, and I do mean strict household.
Yeah.
That gave me some confirmation, or not confirmation, well, basically, yes, some confirmation on why she was seeking out her journey and why the lie that she told was the punishment was so severe. He was not only Pentecostal, but was he not a preacher as well,
right,
of the church?
Yeah. Right.
So not only did you lie, but you place shame upon the family and myself as your father, a pastor of a Pentecostal church.
Yeah, those some good points, lady. I can't lie. I was like when Toya was like, man, I didn't see the severity. I was also in the same boat. Like, like, is this really going to be this bad? I mean, because like as a 5-year-old, a hand pop is like, oh my god, So I was like,
back in the 80s, yes. Today, no.
But see, I'm thinking of, like, I was an 80s, and I'm like, for real, I feel like my parents, my dad was not as strict in military. He was in military, it was strict, but it was my mama. So it was like, I just still feel like that particular was kind of like, okay, yeah, I probably would have gotten in trouble, but like, that wasn't really a big lie. So I was still shocked, like, yeah, I get it, but like, that wasn't such a huge, I guess, yeah. But maybe
it wasn't colossal.
Like Dan said, it's just better how you was right. Like, and then, but like she said, Pentecostal, like that was a thing for me when I was like, okay, like whether it's the stereotypes I believe or just what people I know, I was like, okay, this makes a lot more sense now. Like, okay, yeah.
But you bring up no, thank you, Toya, for that point, because that makes sense. But I do have a quick question, because Debbie and Sheen, you made me think of something when, especially Debbie, I almost went blank for a minute when you were talking about how he was not only the father of this child that just lied, but he was the pastor, and you potentially brought shame into like this household. Like, do you think that, because it sounds like, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but do you think that this preacher, this father, didn't really look at it as this child, just kind of lied and it was whatever, but as like a reflection of him as a preacher? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
That's exactly where I thought
gotcha.
The severity of the punishment came from. Was the fact that it's not that she lied, and what she lied about is, you have now brought shame upon me as a pastor and as on the household.
That makes sense, right? Because his house is supposed to be in order.
Yes, his house is supposed to be in order. Everything is. We live strictly by the Bible, what is taught, and we are not supposed to lie. And you lied.
Man, y'all cooking
That's
early.
True. Yeah.
Cooking early.
That do.
So is it, because again, I think we're all in agreement that it shouldn't have been taken to the extreme, clearly. But the next part out of this, I mean, going down, was that she's again this baby girl, she 5, and she says, I knew the drill. She knew the drill, meaning this isn't the first. This ain't the most likely won't be the last.
Right.
Now,
but it happened a couple times.
At least a couple times. Right. And I won't go all into it, but she says without saying a word, how do I put it? She gets in the position.
But was that not in itself
weird,
or is it just the fact of how she described? Like I don't know. Maybe that's something in me, but that just bothered me how she described preparing for it. I don't know.
I thought all of it was cringe, and I thought it all was cringe. I was like, just every sentiment of it, like it was all just bad. It was.
But I was like, well, why is he doing it and not the mama? Like, especially if you got to get to that extreme, because I'm definitely am experienced where you got to, get there to get your whooping. But it was from my mama, even if it was that extreme, like, to that. So
right.
I don't know.
I mean, it depends on the household and who the disciplinarian is. Clearly, he's the disciplinarian. He runs that household. Because nowhere in there, when she's talking about this, does she mention my mother.
Right.
Because at some point, like, okay, not even coming in, was it discussed, say, and of course, maybe this is just something she left out, was like, okay, your daughter lied today. It said, not even going in on to elaborate on what she lied about. She simply lied.
Right.
And that's just unforgivable, so she has to be punished. Go get me the stick.
Yeah, that bothered me too, because I was like, where mama at? And then,
But you right again, that if that's the way the house is set up in that type of order, that's just right. And then, like what she was saying, I guess back then, but now it's like, what? Like to be, but I
mean, did any of you guys ever get beat by your fathers?
No. My dad, all he had to do was look at me.
Yeah.
Anytime I got into trouble, to get me back in order and straighten up real quick, I'm going to tell your daddy. No, please don't tell my daddy. Not one time did he ever spank me.
Right.
But just, I don't want him to be embarrassed. I don't want to disappoint him. I don't want to let him down. Please don't tell my daddy. I won't do it again.
Yeah.
But he wasn't the disciplinarian. If I got into trouble, he said, I'm go to your grandma.
Yeah. Not that, and I feel like, I definitely know people or vice versa, like where it has been, just not in that, I guess just the whole bear part of, I don't know, maybe it's just a me thing and not even on nothing perverted. It was just the fact of like, if I was like, I don't know, it just, if it's getting to that point, like, I don't know, I just feel bad for mom. But I definitely know people that be whooped or whatever, but just my household was my mom. My dad whooped my brothers, but my mom whooped all of us, but my dad maybe tapped me, but when it was like whooping time, it was always my mama. So I don't know. To answer that, Sheen.
I mean, every whooping I ever got was from my father.
Okay.
I didn't have to, take my underwear off and nothing like that. But hey, I either had on my pants or shorts, and it was with a belt, a leather. And my father is in shape, staying muscles, shit like that.
Right.
Yeah, afterwards I have welts, and I might have things of that nature on me that saying like, so read about that. It's I look back at it now, and even like saying today, it's just, I guess it's just something about like, as a black woman, having a black man, even if this is your father, put his hands on you. You know what I'm saying? Like, kind of, trigger something in you. Like,
True.
With other people, including other men. saying where it's just like, yo, don't touch me, please. Don't touch
Mm.
me.
Oh man,
That's real.
man,
That's
Sheen, thanks for
real.
sharing that. Cause you're
Especially
right.
to
I never
that
thought about that.
magnitude. Yeah.
How that
And
triggers.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm now to add to what you're saying, Sheen. I remember, getting like whooped by my dad once, and I think I did something really bad though. I can't remember. It wasn't that good. Like I don't think I lied. I think I did something. And the funny thing is, I can't remember what I did, but I remember the whooping. And it on. But after that, like after it, on I think he learned like what Debbie was saying. What don't make me ashamed, or if I get ashamed, or how I put it. Once he learned that he could basically look at me or tell me he was disappointed in me, it was like, oh my god, you know what I mean? So I think he learned, and then as I got older, it was just more of a maybe if I got a punishment or something like that. But yeah, but that's a good point that you brought up about how that once any man, to be honest with you, puts their hands on you, whether it's disciplinary, whether it's anything, that could trigger a lot. Like I didn't think about it that way.
I mean,
Hmm.
people really got to think about how they discipline their kids and also how that impacts them, as they become adults.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel for today's kids with social media, these parents recording themselves,
Man.
their kids or disciplining their kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, y'all really need to think about how, this is going to impact your child going forward. And also, these kids got good memory.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be one day you're
Mm-hmm.
probably going to need this child a whole lot more than they're going to need you.
Mm-hmm.
And then they might think back to some of these things. You know what I'm saying? Like for real, we as I think that definitely folks have gotten better in kind of like how they handle maybe or discipline their kids, but even then, it's still like, why are we recording and uploading and putting the shit on the internet?
Right.
Why are we still trying to? That's a different kind of abuse. It's one
True.
thing, to do it within the confines of your own home, not saying that it's not right, but then to double down and do that and
Right.
then show the world this
Right.
and
It's
humiliate your
humiliation.
child, come on. So
Mm.
yeah, reading that definitely that was difficult to read
It was
because
difficult.
it's a grown man hitting a 5-year-old.
Right.
Yeah.
And then she say it took a month
Yeah.
till they
Yes.
so it
Yeah.
was like,
Nah,
Yeah.
like three
dang.
months.
Yeah.
Right. Then 3 months to be able to sit
Yeah,
without squirming. Right. It was like,
I
dang.
mean, the way that he did
that's
it,
child abuse.
It's
That
abuse.
that's
it
child
is
abuse,
the
It's
man. Like
it
abuse.
is the way that he did it. Not only did you use it, first of all, you started with the my word just my thought lost me,
No, I'm with you.
but with the drive home,
Right. The silence. Yeah.
the silence,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
that was enough in itself.
Right.
That spoke
You said after,
volumes.
because when she saw you, when the teacher told it, she already knew she had already let you down. She
Right.
saw it. So it was reinforced on the drive home, complete silence. And then when you get home, the first thing you say to her is, go get the stick.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
She knows the drill, so when she gets the stick and then she undresses, that's complete humiliation.
Right.
Complete.
She remembers this so vividly
Mm-hmm.
because she was humiliated.
Right.
Mm.
It makes me think again, how did you lose respect for your daddy at these
Mm.
points?
Right.
Or like, now this is why I gotta seek out an image of God that looks like me?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Right.
clearly
The
he
guy do
resembles the
believe
white male God.
right. Right.
Mm. Dang. Y'all on
Right.
it tonight.
Right. Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
that's excellent points. That's excellent points.
Yeah.
Like because this is oh gosh.
I mean, I think the main thing so far that I've learned from her books is that her parents really messed her up mentally.
Mm.
Right.
I
Her
I
really
totally
think they
agree.
messed her up mentally.
Yes.
Yeah.
Her
Not necessarily
Yes.
foundation
mentally,
is
but y'all
yes.
caused a lot of this questioning. All right.
Yes.
It's coming from
Yep.
you guys.
Yeah.
So this might as well be, Dr. Chris's, ether book to her parents.
Right.
I mean it yo, that that's what I'm reading. That's it. It's like a lot of childhood trauma that has led her to this point. Like Debbie was saying, yeah.
And then to piggyback off of what you ladies are saying, after this, which I'd call like a humiliation ritual, and like I said, like we talk about, this isn't the first time she knew the drill. Right. End quote. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "I love you." He said, "You know this hurts me more than it hurts you, right? Let's pray together and ask God to help you learn from this." And the next line was, "I couldn't comprehend his words." How could you?
Right.
Like, how?
Pray with me?
Then, right. I'm sweating and hot and tired and hurt. And you.
Right.
And the funny thing is this is the most he talked throughout all of this. Was after that I've picked up. And y'all can let me know. And for your point, Toya, where you were talking about at the end of the page 57, at the time I didn't know that it would be more than a month before I'd be able to walk without pain, and more than 3 months before I would sit without wincing. After I read, well, let me drink some water. Nah. You know what's so funny? And I think, Debbie, you nailed it before, and it made me ask another question. There's not going to be too many instances, and I'm used too many lightly, that you're going to be able to whoop my child to the point where they can't talk or they can't walk. Right. So my question becomes, because I think you nailed it, Debbie, when you said he's the disciplinary figure of the house. How do you think, and again, we're just speculating here, because we maybe she may tells us more, but as a parent, meaning I'm the mother of this child, I didn't, and maybe it may come later in chapters, and with this woman's impeccable memory, what I didn't hear was, I heard fights between my mom and my dad after that whooping. What I didn't hear is, the mom's reaction after this. So I guess my question is if he's like the disciplinary figure of this house, what kind of relationship do you think him and the mom had? In other words, I'm not saying that he may have been abusive to the mom, but do you think she was too, I mean, again, we're just speculating. Do you think she was too scared to say anything?
There. That fear was there. There is no way you, as a parent, I don't care how strong of a male figure you have in the household, you're not going to beat my child to the point where she can't walk or sit comfortably for a month. There's no way. So that fear was there. She knew what she could say and what she could not say.
Yeah.
I also looked at it from this standpoint. When you think about it as how long have those that consider themselves Christians will justify or will use Christianity as a almost like a shield or justification of their violent ways, doing it all under the guise of, well, Christianity teaches us, this and that or whatever. Basically, this is, you know what I'm saying?
Right, absolving themselves.
Or not even that, I am punishing you because our Lord says, one of the 10 Commandments is thou shalt not lie. So now I must beat the holy tar out of you to drive that home because you broke one of these commandments. Now let's pray. No, stupid. You just abused this.
Right.
And beat your daughter. But you're going to justify that under, under the guise of Christianity. because I'm a Christian. I'm treating you. I'm teaching you this Christian way. I mean, y'all,
Right.
wars
Mm-hmm.
are started under the guise of defending Christ.
Keeping slavery. That, I mean, we could go
Everything with slavery.
everything.
It's
Everything
justified.
is
Yes.
justified.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The Christian household is basically the way he that beating and the way he does those beatings. This him interpreting the Bible in his eyesight, like to mean what he wants it to mean. What is it? Spare the rod, spoil the child.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And because they were such a strict household, the mom is agreeing with that, so she's not saying anything.
Poor Dr. Chris.
But again, I no way on earth,
no way,
I'm going to stand by and allow you to come in and go get the stick and strip my daughter down.
No, not on earth or
no,
Mars.
There's no way.
But then
that's just not gonna happen.
I thought it was me, because I was like, you know what I didn't see? So okay, I'm glad that I wasn't on the ledge by myself, because I mean, we were just gonna have to have whatever's gonna happen that night was gonna have to happen.
But when Deb said what she was saying, and that made sense to me now, like to where even moving forward, but it's like thinking back on that Pentecost house, like I said, doing friends and people I knew. The wife got a road to, that's a whole different thing too, and know your place, abide by this rule, speak and don't speak. So
exactly.
So to even think, whereas mom, it now it sounds silly to even think that, just even alone with the whole Pentecost, and like you said, it wasn't a shame about her even telling her how big. No, this is my house is in order. We don't, I'm not up here preaching this and not living it in my house. So that makes all the sense. So, yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
and those beings set her on her path.
Opens the door to like, okay, this is why she is. Well, in my opinion, why she's so all over the place with her faith, because she hasn't even gotten any type of emotional foundation from her parents.
Exactly.
Great point.
Because everything is coming from the church.
And everything's coming from
they are taught.
And everything's coming through the eyes of punishment. Like, like I haven't like, and then I think we go to it in the next part, and that was a great point. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Sheen. Thank you, Toya. Where she confirms what we've assumed, where she says that I wish my imperfection had triggered my dad's curiosity rather than his shame. And he said, I wish he had said to me, wow, you're a precious soul. And you know it's important to tell the truth. What prompted you to tell a lie? What's going on and how can I help? So we can conclude that there was no conversation. But then, just like you ladies pinpointed early, where she says, I was duly ashamed of my imperfect behavior, and I resolved to never do anything that deviated from what my parents wanted me to do. In order to accomplish this impossible task, I internalized my dad's critical voice and unleashed it on myself. And she says, even after I grew up and moved out of my parents' home, it was many, many years before I discovered that my dad's abusive behavior towards me was a mirror image of white male God's abusive behavior toward all of humanity. So that's another point I got to make for another day. And then she goes into the white male God's anti-nurturing world. Before I move on, did anybody want to add anything before I move into this segment of the chapter?
No, I'm good.
Cool. Yeah. Well, she asked a question, and to be honest, I couldn't really answer it like as deep as the other people. So she asked the question. She says, out of this book from, it looks like Natasha Marin, in her book Black Imagination, she asked a multitude of Black Americans to respond to this prompt, and the prompt was, imagine a world where you are loved, valued, and safe. Can you describe it? And the first thing I wanted to ask you ladies what does that mean to you? Like, if I were to ask you that, and you can come back to me if you don't have an answer, because to be honest, it took me a minute to even think, like, what would that look like? Because at first I was like, listen, you can show me I'm loved, valuable, and safe by making sure all my bills paid and I can keep my door unlocked and I'm good. And it was very this veneer surface answer. And then I read what some of the answers were, or the responses rather. And I was like, man, I'm not that, I guess I'm not that deep. But the more I thought about it, I said, if I had to imagine a world where you're loved, valued, and safe, I guess the something that made me think later as I thought more about the question, I was like, well, I guess if I had to imagine a world, I'd say like being a black woman in this body and skin, it would be nice to where I could actually be a victim and not always the villain. And that would make me feel more loved, safe, valued, and safe. And I wanted to read a couple of what the response words to the prompt. And the first one was, sensitivity will return to the deepest reaches of us. Another one was, I wouldn't need to put on my white woman voice to get bills paid or discounts or attention. Another one was, my overall well-being is taken more into account than my amount of labor. Someone else said, we bring all of who we are. And then someone else said, I would be racially mixed, black, transgender man and still be soft. And last but not least, it says, I wonder what tenderness is like. What's it like when the world doesn't exist to calcify my exterior, to prepare me for the blows to come, but rather cradle and protects so that the slightest scratch is unbearable. And I wanted to ask you ladies, if could you imagine a world and what would that look like? And if you don't have an answer, I'll come back. It's cool. But before I move on.
I mean, I'll go first. Mine's is very simple. 5 acres, a home, a rocking chair on the front porch with a little girl shotgun, and a lunch. Thank you. My peace. I'm retired. That's where I feel loved, valued, and safe. All right, you know what I'm saying? Hey, the love of family and friends. We can include that too. And I'm good.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Let's see. So to move on, on page 59, they talk a little bit more about this Black Imagination book. And she goes into, we long for a sensitive society that grieves when a little black girl believes she must lie about skipping first grade in order to receive affirmation. So a lot of these statements are kind of making us, like you said before, kind of making us understand where she's coming from and why this journey was so necessary. And she also goes into on page 60 where she says, to need or not to need, that is how patriarchy determines who is valuable and who is not. So now we move into the white male God's intolerance for need. Then she tells us about another time where we learn more about, like you said, or you noted before, Debbie, of the Pentecostal church, where she says it's on Easter Sunday in 1989. She says, I had the chicken pox and was miserable, but there were no circumstances under which I, the child of preachers, was ever allowed to miss a Sunday school service. Now, I don't know.
Another form of abuse.
Thank you. Now, I don't know about y'all. I caught the chicken pox before. It was miserable.
Right, but in chickenpox contagious if you haven't caught it yet.
It's very contagious. People could have already been vaccinated for chickenpox and still can catch it. That was another form of abuse.
I was like, I get you get made to still come to church when you ain't feeling sometimes, but I was like, come on. Chickenpox, you really girl.
So I'm glad that you already weren't irate reading about her getting her ass whooped. if these first two sentences didn't piss you off, this is where I almost threw my
That
phone.
took
I was like,
me
no,
to
y'all did not
another
bring y'all
level.
damn. Oh my God! I said, this is 1989.
Right.
Now y'all know better than this.
No better.
Yeah.
Very high level of passivity I was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Come on. I remember when I got the chicken pox, man, I was home for like a week.
A week.
I didn't even leave the damn room.
That part.
They was like, yo, you stay in here with this calamine lotion.
Right.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's it. After this, I kind of blacked out a little bit because I was like,
livid.
her parents at?
I mean, they completely dressed her in Easter Sunday.
Bump it. Bump it.
And set her on the back row alone. And she's miserable.
Right.
No, not even that. On one of the most packed days, the church is going to see
Exactly.
That part.
I can't do this.
You must be crazy. Oh my God.
Can't do it.
So, but then also reading just that lets me know her parents have no damn common sense whatsoever. All right? I'm sorry. No. This is basic common sense. And you know what also pisses me off? Think about when just even today, you got people that will send their, no, I'm not vaccinating my child, man. And then wonder why when August and September rolls around and these kids go back to school and then everybody is suddenly sick, like within a few weeks.
Or they send, and like you said, send them to school. Like,
send these jokers to school. Like, send them everywhere.
Yeah.
It is, I can't believe that they actually, I can't believe that somebody actually with the chickenpox.
Visible proof that this child is not well. Like, it's one thing.
Easter best, like Debbie said, in your Easter Sunday best.
Right.
Oh my God.
Unbelievable.
Oh my goodness.
Unbelievable. I was livid reading this chapter, and I think
was pissed reading that. I was like, man, all right, so get the whole congregation sick. Got you.
Right.
Everybody gonna catch
it. Got you. Yeah. You know how heated I'd be if somebody, what, man, you go to church on Sunday?
And you come home with chicken pox.
You sit next to a little girl with chicken pox, man, I'm flipping over pews, Bibles, and hymns. I'm setting it off up in there, bro. Ain't no way. Oh my. All right.
You know,
so y'all can see what got me clicking.
Right. You know, and maybe because I'm sorry, Shane. Say what you say. I'm sorry.
No, I said let me mute and calm down because I'm clicking right now. I'm going on mute.
Right. I know. I was. And then she so now I'm thinking so first you set the baby girl on the row alone, so she has nobody and so she has nobody even talk to or tell because she's already beyond I'm saying uncomfortable, and that's light, right? That's light work. She's miserable, and like you said, this is abuse. But she had nobody to tell. It's not like she said she was sitting by her mom. Like, I'm assuming mom was like first lady or something. Dad was somewhere in the pulpit or something. Maybe mom was an usher. I don't know. But she had nobody she could even talk to be like, man, I can't do this. None of those conversations could happen. And she's talking, and she goes into how she was unbearably itchy. And I can't even lie.
Hold on, Nene. Even then. And Toya and Debbie, please step in. Come on, y'all. In a church full of freaking people, did not one person
that's what I was going to say.
Notice this little girl, who's the daughter of the pastor and the lady.
Listen,
did nobody notice her on the back row with chicken pox?
I would
Unless, like they already know how he operate regular, like, you know what I'm saying. Unless it's like, of course,
thank you, Toya.
Up in that, like, I don't know. That really got me thinking, like, for him to just
thank you, Toya. They already
so this is what he do. Like she said, going back to, she knew before the teacher even told her daddy, just to look in her eye, like they already know what is out of order and what is how he operates. So it's like, I don't know. Now I just have this look of like,
he literally is
his pastor.
Yeah. He strikes me as a force to be reckoned with, and people will not say anything. People know how he runs his household, and without the beat, I'm sure he runs his church the same way.
Right.
I tell you one thing. I bet that church gossip was so juicy that day.
Oh, probably for sure.
Listen, I bet everybody was like, I know Pastor so and so and had his daughter with
that, saying that,
right,
all of that, like what Sheena saying, but they probably wasn't saying it out loud.
Right, they were gossiping over pound cake. Yeah. Over that poor baby, because I would have been like, this don't sound. But I bet that was juicy that Sunday with that poor baby. We're gonna have to talk about this. I'm telling everybody. I'm calling everybody.
But this is just like, and then you wonder why there's why you have a generation, why you kind of saw a fall off a generation of black children that no longer want to be involved with the church.
Are they parents?
And we can't act like that there hasn't been a drop off.
It has been.
Because there has been.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's just, this is one thing. Why in the world would I go back to the church? And I guess this just ties back into, her point writing this book. Why would I even look to go back into the church? I was 5 years old, and you jokers just sat there and watched me with the chicken pox. I mean, and not one person. It's a congregation full of y'all. Y'all couldn't jump my parents. Couldn't none of y'all knock some sense into them? Nothing?
True.
Ask me if I want some water or something. I mean, we're not dealing. It wasn't like the congregation wasn't full of adults. Does that make sense?
Y'all gotta remember, this is a Pentecostal church.
Yeah.
Everything is done in the eyes of God.
Yeah.
We have to live in His eyesight. Everything we do is being monitored. We have to live for Christ.
Yeah.
And that's just what they're on. This is how he runs his household. This is what I have to respect. Right now, her daddy, being the pastor, he's a step under God for the most part. If I say anything to him or go against his wishes, that's going against God.
Yeah.
Do you think in a weird, twisted way that some people could have looked at it like, man, if he had his daughter here and she's suffering through this, they sure will be blessed. Do you think that could have, do you think anybody think twisted like that? Because it made me think of that when you just said that, D, about, everything through God, etc. Like, would that be far-fetched to think somebody thought that this twisted as that? Like, with that suffering going on, they're probably going to be really blessed or anything. Is that too much, or am I just tripping?
Oh no, they probably saw it that way.
No way! Oh God!
It's just like being in church all day, every Sunday. This is a gateway to heaven.
Oh God!
Right.
Oh no!
Right.
Oh no!
Right.
Man.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, man. Okay. So moving on to, I'm on page 62 where she starts another segment of the chapter, and she says needy people need not apply. And she's talking about, not everyone had experienced spiritual communities like the one in which I grew up, which to Debbie's point was, she said, nevertheless, many of us have received a similar message. In order to be considered worthy of love, value, and safety in white male God's world, we must overcome whatever obstacles are in our way without displaying any need. Then she talks about this sociologist, Kahn, who uses the term democratic inequality. And he says, Kahn writes, we live in a world of democratic inequality, by which I mean that our nation embraces the democratic principles of openness and access. Yet, as that embrace has increased, so too have our levels of inequality. And then she moves on to say, or excuse me, Kahn's research to say about Ivy League universities have significantly increased in racial diversity. He says, we often think of openness and equality as going hand in hand. And yet we look at our experiences over the last 50 years and we can see that that's simply not the case. And then she says, but that's only true for the small percentage of us who are able to meet white male gods' exacting standards without expressing any need. So then she walks through and she's talking about like economically challenged people, how these are all variations of need. And she goes into the example of like economically oppressed black women who shoulder the triple burden of white supremacy, patriarchy, and capitalism are labeled welfare queens as if they dare rely on government assistance, talking about everybody as welcome. But then she brings up not much of a statistic, but on page 63 she says, for example, research from the National Women's Law Center show that in all 50 U.S. states, black girls are suspended at least 5.5 times more often than white girls, even though black girls do not actually misbehave more frequently or egregiously. If black girls aren't more mischievous and dangerous than white girls, then why the disparity? The researchers explain that stereotypes of black girls and women as angry or aggressive and promiscuous or hypersexualized can shape school officials' views of black girls in critically harmful ways. And then she goes on to say that when little black girls speak out on behalf of their need, they are often seen as a threat or punished accordingly. So it sounds like more of this chapter is about the variations of need. Excuse me, cracking. The other part of the chapter got me anyway. How these variations of needs, the more needs that you have, the more that you're going to be deemed, I guess, inferior in white male God's eye. And I don't know. There was a lot of these points that are true, right? So let me start back by saying anybody who is talking or writing or anything like that, they all have a point, right? Anytime you have a conversation, you have a point. Like, this is the point I'm trying to get to. And so it's almost like, how do I go with this? Everybody has a point. When you're reading a book, there's the point of the story, whatever the author's trying to read, and they use different examples of how to get you to the point. This is not new. This is any story you read, fiction, nonfiction, or what. But I don't know. I think some of these points aren't sticking the landing for me. You know, like, because I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it was just funny how you said they're not sticking the landing for me.
Some of them, because I was making a few points as I'm reading this, and then I was like, well, like, I agree with the point she's making, but I don't agree in which direction we're going with it, right? Like, you know, because like I was thinking, like, you know, I think that Dr. Chris, it was kind of condensing an array of points of trying to get us to, you know, to prove how the different needs, you know, are viewed as inferior to white male God, when I think, and while the points are valid, it's just, I don't know if I would have directed them into the point of needs. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes. Yeah. I agree with that. And but so, then I was like, maybe she's speaking for a voice that I'm just not familiar with. Maybe point. I don't know enough of them people, but maybe it's a voice that is just not familiar to me.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Did any of you guys?
I did agree with you on that. I did feel the same way though. I did.
I took it as her just kind of tying it into what just happened to her, what she just described, from her getting, from her just, telling an innocent little lie of her skipping a grade to her now getting beat you know what I'm saying, unmercifully by her father.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's follow it up some more with I, another incident. I'm sick with the chicken pox, and my parents forced me to go to church and make me sit in the back row by myself, and I'm miserable, and I'm sitting there. And then she goes into, dropping all these things about how, black women are treated, how our feelings are never taken into account, anything like that. And it's just like, well, based off of the white male gods, teaching, who do her parents follow, or what do they follow within their religion, or excuse me, what being are they following over? What words? What are they actually, or what have they been conditioned to follow? And right now, that's been kind of like a traditional white Christianity.
And I think that's the thing, though, right? Because you're right. Excuse me. And the points, I understand the points in the direction, and I think that's the thing, though, because the points in the direction I get, I I think the part that where I'm like, is that it's under the umbrella of need. And I guess I'm looking at it like when I'm looking at like black girls being like, for example, she uses the father, and to be honest, that's not even the whole big point about how she talks about the father, and she ties in the need of affirmation, or the need of acceptance, and the need of not being shamed, and all that's that. I get that. I mean, and I get every point of how she's how it's being lined up. I think, but when I'm reaching the point about like the stereotypes of black girls and black women, I think when it's under the umbrella of need, I'm like, while it is, and I get it, I'm looking at like when you say need, I hear lack of thereof, because like a lot of these things, while it can be, I guess, classified as a need, I'm just looking at it like straight discrimination. And I'm not saying that she's not looking at it that way, but I guess being under the umbrella of need is like, I wish that she would have pushed the point of, while these things are needed, while we have, these are the reason we have these needs. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
Like, not that the need isn't there, not that it's not under the umbrella of need, but the reason we need it, the reason why these black girls can't speak out, the reason why these black girls are considered more misbehaving, more egregious, isn't because they were needing, how do I put it? Isn't because they weren't needing something, but the reason they were needing it was because of their racial disparities, if that makes sense. Like, I wish the point kind of would have went back around to why these things were needed in the first place. Like, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I probably have sounded better later, if that makes sense.
Got you.
Like,
Got you.
yeah. Well, I'm sorry. So then she goes into, and I may tie it better later, but she goes into disgusted by need, and she talks about in the white male God's world, to be human is to be needless. So of course, white patriarchy does not permit a definition of femininity that challenges the status quo. And then she moves into, this is a heavy burden for all women, but the weight is crushing little black girls who, due to societal anti-blackness and misogyny, carry great need in their bodies. Right? Okay. And their societal inflicted need is loud, and yet they are supposed to keep quiet. So again, same kind of thing, and it's like, okay, but then she goes into, this heart-crushing research illuminates just how much white male God society is disgusted by need. And I think that's the other point, right? Like, that's why I was hoping that she was kind of going more into the direction of need, right? For example, like, the reason for a lot of these things are like poverty or what's considered like government welfare and healthcare. Like if we're talking about what's discussed, if the society is disgusted by need, it's like, well, when who needs who, right? When who needs what? If certain people need something, then it's not considered this. But if certain people with a certain hue need something, then it's considered that. And I think I was hoping that she was going to kind of drive that point more home as far as why would be considered a need, kind of flipping it back. I don't know. I'm still thinking through it. But yeah, I think that's the other thing. I don't know. But on page 64, she goes into the whiteness disgust for need is immortalized in the trophy of white masculinity, the self-made man. This mythical man who supposedly mastered his circumstances and acquired power in white male gods' world all by himself is celebrated in films, literature, and even historical accounts. And then she ties it back to her dad, and this is where we begin to learn more about this individual. And the next segment, she talks about the making of a needless father. I wonder what my dad, back when he was a young father, would have said if he had been asked to describe a world where he felt loved, valued, and safe. And she says, I wonder if he felt loved, valued, and safe at all. And then she goes into the dad, more background story of the dad. She talks about how he was a black boy growing up in the 1960s and 1970s in Watts, California. And then she says he also witnessed what happens when black people express need in a way that doesn't accommodate the white moderate's delicate sensitivities. Then she gets into more details about his upbringing, etc., and talks about when his high school Friday night football games became the preferred battleground for the warring Los Angeles gangs. Dad, who was a student body president, initiated and oversaw the process of moving the games from Friday nights to Friday afternoons. This upset gang members who threatened Dad at knife point in an attempt to get him to reverse the change. But Dad didn't flinch. The games proceeded on Friday afternoons and the game time gangs shoot ceased. And then she goes to say, at the end, meaning like at the end when he graduated high school, he was rewarded with admission to Yale University and a bright future in white male God's world. I don't know, this still infuriated me. I'm sorry. Because I guess when I first thought, and now taking into what Debbie was talking about the religion, about the Pentecostal religion, and about, setting the precedent, and, now it's making me like, okay, but still, no. Because I guess I'm thinking like, at first when I was reading this, right, I was like, well, maybe he wasn't able to communicate feelings. Maybe he wasn't able to, show more of an emotional side. Maybe he didn't have the language. And now I'm reading like, homeboy got accepted to Yale. He knew words. Like, he knew words. So I don't know. I'm still like, I think we all can agree to everything was abusive, but
you got to reflect back on his upbringing.
Yeah.
And that's where it stems from. It's harder for, you would think someone who went to Yale would be able to break a generational cycle of abuse.
You would think.
You would think that. But if the work is not being done, if this is something that you don't see where there is a problem and something that needs to be addressed, it's never addressed and the cycle is repeated.
You right about that, D. You couldn't.
Especially things like this made me who I am, to even get to Yale to do, like she said, may not even see that any of that was wrong. or that's what it took for him to be who he is. Yeah, that's true. I can see that too.
Yeah, because did it not mention that he was the grandson of a bishop?
Of a pastor, of a bishop.
Exactly.
He still grew up in the church, and then also, let's separate. Once again, I keep on pointing back to his parents don't have no common sense. Yeah,
exactly.
He had smarts, but he ain't have no kind of. He ain't have no book smart. No, I'm not gonna say street smarts. No real good common damn sense. Because some of the stuff that we just read in this chapter makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
None.
Another thing that really, and this is just kind of like taken away, so totally separate from what the book is supposed to be about, but it was very disheartening to read that this man, to read about gang shootings in the 60s. Now, I understand this is still Watts and everything, but dang, that's how long y'all jokers been killing each other out here in these streets?
Right.
It's still doing it.
Right.
That's
it's disheartening. Yes.
That's a great point you brought up, Sheen, because in my mind, I always thought of like, if y'all ever seen like Snowfall on Fox with
they try to make it seem like that
it was like the 70s. Yeah,
the
like the 80s was the big
crack with the crack trade.
Yes.
No, y'all been dealing with this shit. This is the 60s. And when you should have been out here coming together and fighting against these races behind white folks, no, y'all out in the streets killing each other. So think about it. You had a gang war happening, and then on top of that, you had, I don't know what part of the 60s, it's early 60s, and Malcolm is still alive. Dr. King is still alive. And then the Black Panther Party,
just veering up.
For self-defense is still in its baby stage.
Right.
Now, we talking mid-60s, then Black Panther Party is in full swing. Malcolm is now deceased. Martin is now deceased. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like you had so much to be fighting for. What were y'all doing fighting yourselves?
That's a great point.
And then look at the legacy or the downwards path that you said that you started that we still haven't been able to overcome.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
That's sad to read.
Now you got me with that one, Sheen. You got me because you're right. Like just like you noted, like you said, when I thought about like gangs and everything, like you said, I was thinking like late 70s, 80s, the 60s.
Yeah.
Like you're thinking like well, I wasn't live, but like you said, you had so many prominent figures as role models. You all had a common, and I hate to say enemy, but for lack of a better way, you had a common enemy. Like, how were you fighting yourself? Does that, you know what I mean? So no, that's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up.
I wanted to mention too that I wanted to mention too that from a father who had no communication with his daughter after he found out she lied. There was complete silence in the car to her going into deep conversation. Well, I won't say deep conversation, where she touched on so much of his background. Where did these stories come from? Right. Was he able to sit down and talk to her about those? Yeah. But again, was she not 5 or 6 when she went to the church? And he's dealing, well, he wasn't dealing with it then. That was later in high school. But for him to be growing up in that age, for her not to ever know the N word and what it meant, it still bothers me. And then she's going into, like, she's talking so much about his upbringing, and what's the name of the topic again? That section, the making of a needless father. Yeah. And it's basically based off of his upbringing. Yeah. Where did she get this information from? Right. Did he sit her down and talk to her about it? Because he even went and she knows about what her his daddy left the family. And he became a surrogate father to his siblings at a very early age.
Right. Yeah.
So it's I don't know. I'm not seeing how this is tying in and bringing it home for me.
It's not sticking the landing.
Because if you can talk to her about all of this, you didn't have a discussion with her about the N word.
But Debbie, you see, y'all. Yes, because it's like, how are we having these conversations but not the other ones? And no, like you said, it keeps going back to the point. See, I keep going back to the point of the beginning of chapter 4, that we can't communicate, baby girl, why'd you lie? But like you said, this goes back further to me. Like you said, this goes. I'm sorry to interrupt because I'm excited. But this goes back further, like what you were saying in like the first chapter, the first and second chapter. How are we having conversation A without B? You know, like
exactly. We're talking about you in high school being a president, and this is what you implemented and was rewarded for it.
Right.
But you didn't have these conversations with your daughter. She doesn't know what the N word is. She's putting 2 and 2 together. She know that it's a bad term, but she doesn't know what it is. Like, come on. Something's missing.
Right.
Once again, you a brother from Watts? Yo, I'm just saying. Hey.
Thanks. Instead of the gangs, right.
I'm a little bit confused there, okay?
True. But maybe it go back to, remember when we all talking when like around the first chapter, and like when we were talking about how that whole where you think that you're doing best when you're really kind of sheltering your kids, or you're putting them in these white schools, or you're putting them in these type of environments. So maybe, that contributes to it too, where he ain't really lose touch, and that's why he wasn't scared with the gun. He keep making me think of that scene where in that Serena and what's-it-called movie?
King Richard.
Richard, where the dad wasn't, he dealt with what he dealt with the hood part of his kids growing up in that. So it seems like he's not out of touch with it, but just like you said, like they some kind of way sometimes when parents like think steering away from that or forget where they quote unquote come from, like maybe that's contributing to it too.
I hear you, Toe.
Yeah, and like and clearly it's caused more harm than good.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So like,
ironic that you brought up Richard Williams in this example, where another black man that abandoned his family.
But right.
And he grew up in where they grew up in Compton.
Yes, and when he said no, when he came to the mama, yeah.
Like, yo, hey, isn't that, around that age?
That was a good point. Man, so I guess that could be. Yeah.
So he might have already had that in him before becoming this Pentecostal pastor, before, with the, so all of that just, Woo.
Man. Well, y'all on fire tonight.
But think about it also. This man, and it's not, how common was it for those to be able to go all the way from California to Connecticut to go to school? You know what I'm saying? And then you leave all the way from Watts to go into, an Ivy League institution.
True.
It's kind of like where we keep on saying, and the racism that you faced in Watts, I can guarantee you probably wasn't nearly the amount of racism that you experienced those years at Yale.
That part.
But look how eager, even though, look how there was, what I'm saying, you put yourself in a space. Think about this. She went to Columbia, right?
I believe she went
or
to.
NYU, or it's been a lot of Ivy League schools that have been mentioned, or these universities,
Right.
international universities, or European universities. Big, you know what I'm saying? Like we were questioning Dr. Chris about, why do you keep on putting yourself in these positions when in chapter one, chapter two, and then surprised about the kind of like the outcome of it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at her dad.
Mm.
Now, of course, we don't know how it went for him at Yale or what brought him to, this point of both he and his wife being, pastors and inexplicably bringing their child to Easter Sunday with chicken pox. But, it's kind of like we're seeing, father and daughter putting themselves in positions and not being forced to. You went to it's a choice to go to Yale. It's a
Right.
choice to go to these speaking engagements. It's a choice
Mm-hmm.
to go to these colleges and these universities.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like that correlation there too.
I hear you. Man, a lot of these things are are coming back around, which I find that's okay. All right. Well, this kind of concludes this end of the chapter. She talks about that, or she's building building the story of that, her, and she says, I encountered this God just months later on my pilgrimage to France. And then it looks like she's going to actually go in more into the Black Madonna. And more, I'm hoping more of the principles, more origin information. Hopefully, we'll see. We'll go from there. But man, ladies, like I just appreciate your perspectives tonight because it really touched on a lot. Before we wrap this up, did anybody had anything they wanted to add or say before we close out everything?
I think for this chapter, it finding out that she was raised Pentecostal versus Catholic, which that's where my mind was leading me,
Right.
but it clearly was going down the wrong path. But being raised Pentecostal, and to me, this confirms like her confusion and why she's on such a search.
Yeah.
Right.
I think.
Same for me. So. Right.
Yeah. This answers a lot of questions.
Yeah, it does. So.
Yeah. Well,
as always, I'm looking forward to what's next.
I hear that. I hear that. Well, ladies, once again, I appreciate your time, and we'll pick up where we left off on well, not pick up, but you know what I mean. We'll start on chapter 5 next Sunday. And you guys, everybody have a good night. Thank you. Oh, yeah. And then if anybody had any things that they wanted to add to it or stuff that we may have missed, please let us know. And you guys have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Have a great week, ladies.